Thank you, Scott. And I wanted to add my hearty congratulations and my sincere thanks to all of the people that were nominated and we are honoring today. Congratulations. We're going to move now to our Alumni Awards, and I want to thank my colleague, Kelly Calhoun, who's Executive Director of Alumni Relations, who really expertly chaired this committee. And my sincere thanks also to Kelly and all of the other members of the committee for your service in helping us select these incredible alumni recipients today. We're really excited to include Sustainability Awards for alumni because we know that there are literally hundreds and thousands of alums across many decades, across the country, across the world, who are leaders in sustainability in their professional and their civic lives. These alumni are a valuable part of UNH's sustainable learning community, and we're so excited today to welcome 6 exemplary leaders to campus so that you can hear a little bit about their wisdom and their professional journeys. These are leaders who are making a profound difference right here in New Hampshire, across the nation, and literally on the other side of the world. We are recognizing the 3 awardees in the category of alumni who graduated within the last decade. We call those gold alums. So the first gold alumni recipient is Andres Mejia. As the first person in his family to receive his undergraduate and graduate degrees, Andres has been a powerful advocate for social justice, particularly in the public education system. This included founding, when he was here a student at UNH, he founded Men of Strength, the organization. After graduating, and he also served on the President's Commission on the status of people of color. After graduating from UNH with a BS in social work, Andres spent 6 years working at UNH implementing diversity initiatives and really spearheading underrepresented student support and helping leaders across campus become more culturally competent. This included his role as director of UNH's Connect program for first generation and underrepresented students, as leader of the Martin Luther King Leadership Summit, and as the advisor to this year's Student Organization of the Year, the Black Student Union. Andres went on to earn his master's degree in Community Development Policy and Practice from UNH's Carsey School. And since 2001, Andres has been the director of DEI and Justice for the Exeter public schools, continuing his very strong legacy of being a social justice leader in the sphere of public education. So Andres, come on up, bring the baby too if you'd like. All welcome on the stage. Woo! Come up and take a seat. Next is Andreanecia Morris. Through her roles as Executive Director of HousingNOLA, President of the Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance, and as Chairperson of the Housing Louisiana Alliance Network, Andreanecia has devoted her career to promoting housing, accessibility, and affordability. She was instrumental in developing a long-range plan that helped create 500 first-time homebuyers, distributed $10 million in home buyer subsidy, and provided support for 5,000 households in New Orleans. Her work has earned her multiple awards, including being one of J.P. Morgan Chase's Icons of New Orleans and Gambit's 2017 New Orlean of the Year. Congratulations, Andreanecia. And the third award for graduates of the last decade goes to Sarah Wrightsman. She is a powerful advocate also for housing affordability, but her work is right here in New Hampshire. Since receiving her master's degree from Carsey and her undergraduate degrees from UNH, Sarah has been instrumental in advancing equitable access to housing across the state of New Hampshire. Prior to her current role coordinating community engagement for New Hampshire, Sarah was Executive Director of the Workforce Housing Coalition of the Greater Seacoast and the Housing Coordinator for the Regional Economic Development Center. She's also been awarded many accolades, including being the Union Leaders 40 Under 40 list and many other things. So congratulations and thank you, Sarah, for all the work that you do. And now I'm going to move on to the awardees in the category of lifetime achievement. Although I do have to note at least 2 of these, if not 3 of these awardees, asked me if they could possibly defer that for about 10 or 20 years because they don't feel like they're done. And my response was, you're getting this award because you've already done many decades of incredible work. We know there's many decades ahead, but you deserve a Lifetime Achievement Award for the work already done. So in this category, I'm really honored to present an award to Kerem Durdag. After obtaining his master's in mechanical engineering from UNH in 1994, Kerem had an impressive career founding and leading entrepreneurial companies, including a company that was an innovator in biopolymer nonwoven advanced materials with applications for, among other things, infection control and sustainable plastics. Today, Kerem is the president and COO of Great Works Internet, the only certified B Corp in the telecommunications industry in the world. GWI has a clear mission of providing rural communities with reliable and affordable broadband internet. These are the communities that are often being left behind by the large Comcasts and other internet providers because they consider rural communities as not financially viable. Kerem uses his voice to advocate for conscious capitalism and for digital inclusion. In his not-so-spare time, he also uses his 3 language and many talents to be a powerful advocate for immigrants in his state of Maine. He founded the Indus Fund in 2020 and acts as managing partner of this microloan facility for first-generation immigrant business owners. And in his even less spare time, for the last 20 years, he's also been a storyteller, poet, lyricist, playwright, and indie short film producer. His work has a strong focus on social justice and really helping a wide audience understand societal issues. Most recently, and I was lucky enough to be in the audience for this, he had the world premiere of Somewhere Elsewhere, a new pop rock musical that immerses the audience in migration, losses, and the triumphs of a contemporary Turkish immigrant to the United States. Congratulations, Kerem. And next up, Jason McBriarty. After graduating from UNH, Jason headed off to the West Coast, but we won't hold that against him, and has really built his career as a champion for social justice. He worked for the Northern California Community Loan Fund, where he created and launched a financial training program for grassroots social justice organizations. He joined the Levi Strauss Company in 2004 and has since played many pivotal roles, helping advance Levi's well-deserved reputation as one of the most responsible companies in the world and being a key member of the team that developed their global environmental vision. Today, as the director of the Levi Strauss Foundation, he helps lead their impact and reputation as an investor and supporter of social justice and environmental issues that many other major corporations have typically shied away from, notably Black Lives Matter, immigrant rights, democracy and voting rights, and most recently, reproductive health rights for women. Congratulations, Jason, and it's so nice to have you back on campus. And last but no means least, Sharon Runge. A longtime volunteer of the organization, Dr. Sharon Runge became executive director of Kenya Connect in 2014. With a doctorate and experience in higher education, as well as a background in development, she is really using those skills to expand the impact of Kenya Connect, whose mission is to empower and engage students and teachers in rural Kenya to succeed in the 21st century. A 501c3 based in the US and a registered NGO in Kenya, under Sharon's leadership, Kenya Connect has evolved as a model for ethical, effective, and sustainable development. We couldn't be happier and more grateful that Sharon is now partnering with UNH, mentoring and hosting UNH students and faculty in Kenya, providing transformative educational and research experiences. Sharon, congratulations, and thanks for all the way that you partner with us. So I have the honor and privilege of knowing all of these people and know just how much incredible accumulated wisdom and insights they have. And it's not often that we get them back to campus. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time up here on the stage so that you can benefit from some of the things that I've heard from these amazing speakers over the years. So we have 3 short questions. We're going to ask them in the sort of mini panel here. I'm sorry, I can't quite see you all. So the first question we wanted to pose to all of you is, in just a few words, what does creating a sustainable future require us to collectively do? So Andres, why don't we start with you, because you're first on the line.
Testing 1, 2.
That's it.
All right. Can you ask the question again?
Yes, of course. In just a few words, what does creating a sustainable, equitable future require us all to collectively do?
Yeah. I think in sustaining a sustainable future, it takes listening to folks, listening to each other's stories, each other's hearts, to understand that if we want someone to feel like they belong and they're going to stay here, we sustain them in whatever community we work in, whatever organization, that we have to make them feel like they belong, that their voice and that their story and their life experience matters. So I think that's what we have to do, listen to each other.
So important. Thank you. Andreanecia.
So we have a saying in our work, we say put housing first is how you put people first. And so that is what I believe is what we need to figure out how to do, is how to put each other first, truly. Listening to each other, obviously, but also really recognizing that the things that we want for this planet, that we want for each other, that we want as individuals, everyone else wants and is entitled to. And unfortunately, as a species, we don't quite accept that. We don't believe that others who suffer, who struggle, are entitled to the things that we have, quote unquote, worked hard for. That somehow they have gone awry, they have made mistakes, and they deserve the circumstances that they are in. And these circumstances we can easily find ourselves in, whether it's a pandemic or a financial crisis or a disaster. And it is that lack of empathy that leads us to tolerating the systemic inequities that are killing communities like mine. And so we have to, in order to get to sustainability, we have to put those blinders down and we have to look at each other.
Very well said. Thank you. Sarah,
I'm concerned I'm going to say too many words already. I have a toddler in the audience somewhere, so him having a sustainable and equitable future is something that I think about, or rather I worry about all the time. And my perspective coming from housing and from sort of thinking about economic development, I think about things aren't sustainable right now because it's just, particularly for young people, but I suspect for people of all ages, it is just so incredibly expensive to be alive. When you combine the cost of education, the cost of childcare, the cost of housing, and you combine that with wages that haven't kept up with those costs, people aren't thriving. They're just surviving, if that, and that's so challenging. And so I think of this as like, what do we need to do? We need to, yes, talk to each other and listen to each other and be open-minded and put down our fears and our misperceptions and our biases about these topics. And we hear this in housing all the time because these fears are rooted in myths and misunderstandings and misperceptions. And just be open to creativity and solutions and flexibility and really imagine, what do we want our communities to look like? Not right now, but in the future, and how do we get there together?
Beautifully said, Sarah. Thank you. Kerem.
I truly believe, other than the answers that you've already gotten and the ones you're going to get, no pressure. No pressure. You see, that's why you have the older graduate alumni on this side. That's why the older graduate alumni on this side. You see the way we communicate? The younger ones, it's different. No, I truly believe that we have to have a maniacal belief in the social contract. It has to be maniacal, that we care about each other and that our democracy and our virtual existence on this planet is anchored in the reality that we have to have a social contract. Where there's empathy, understanding, conversation, and listening, in the social contract lies equality. If we're not equal, whether it's our appreciation of Mother Earth or whether it's appreciation of each other as human beings, we're condemned to being an irrelevant species in the scale of this galaxy. So to me, what sustainability really requires is for us to understand what's at stake if we do not bind ourselves with the social contract. And it's unfurled, it's gotten a little ratty, it's gotten a little messy and rusty. But I believe it's our financial, moral, ethical, and spiritual obligation that we unfurl that flag and live or die by it. Because I think the stakes are that high.
Well, no pressure, Jason.
Yeah, for
Follow
sure.
that.
So on the plane, you guys got to check out his TED Talk. He's done a couple of TED Talks, super interesting. When I was on the plane, I got a chance to watch them. Since I have the microphone, I do want to say two quick things. I wouldn't be on this stage if it wasn't 31 years ago. I took a Women's Studies 101 course with Jane Stapleton, who's sitting over here. She's my special guest. She instilled in me the power of yes. I had a preordained future that my family, to take over my family's business, and I knew it wasn't in my heart, and she saw something and she encouraged me. And again, it put me on a new path, and it's why I'm here today. So it's the power of saying yes. And also, just sitting in the audience, having been here 31 years ago, I actually saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers in this building 31 years ago. Seeing all the sea of diversity, the beautiful faces up there just warmed my heart. It makes me feel just so hopeful about UNH and about the future. And to answer the question, I think the best indicator of how a society and the values of society is how they treat the most vulnerable. Do we decide to put the vulnerable, to shun them and put them on the edges of society, or do we embrace them and bring them into the center? And that, to me, is one of the most important things that I think we need to do for a sustainable future, is to take those that are vulnerable and bring them and put them at the center of our work.
Yeah. Sharon.
Is this on? So, in thinking about the question, and this panel is amazing with all the responses, I think education is also key. And you're all here today because of education. And I have to say, I was absolutely blown away listening to the different research, hearing about the different initiatives happening at UNH. I mean, we've got so many problems, and we need creators, creative thinkers, problem solvers, and that takes education. But it's not just education with lip service. I work in a very, very rural community in Kenya in severely under-resourced schools. And I go into those classrooms, and the kids are bright. You can see it in their eyes. They're eager to learn. But they lack the most basic resources. And I know here in the US, we have parts of our country with classrooms that are under-resourced, with teachers that are just barely able to survive in the classroom because they're overcrowded. And I think as a country and as a world, we really need to fund education, because that's going to be the solution out of this. And I also see, when I travel to Kenya and work with our team in Kenya, the devastation of climate change is real. When you're in a community that is primarily subsistence farmers, and you go there, and maybe, I go a year and a half and it hasn't rained, and the normal rain cycles aren't coming, so the farmers have, dug trenches, planted the maize, and the rains don't come. And maybe they come a little bit, but then the crops fail. And, when you see the brink of famine, it's hard. And it's in large part due to what's happening in our country and other developed countries. So, I think, part of the learning and education is thinking about, it's not just about what's happening in the US, it's about what's happening around the world, and how can we try to make that difference.
Sharon, thank you. And I think that's a perfect segue to our next question, which is, we've been talking about this all afternoon, right? That it's no secret that the world is facing multiple crises of sustainability. The climate crisis, the climate emergency, global reckoning with racial injustice, growing inequalities of all kinds, the growing impacts of the global health pandemic, to name just a few. And so as we really think about the future, because we're future-oriented here, and really tackling these large, complicated, and interconnected issues, what kinds of leadership do you think we need? And I'm asking that question, both because I think everyone's interested in the answer, but also, as an educational institution, we'd love to hear what you have to say around that about as we think about supporting and educating future leaders like yourselves. So I'm just going to invite anyone who wants to start on that question. Jason, go for it.
This is an easy one for me. Frankly, we need a lot less people who look like me. We need a lot more women and a lot more people of color taking the reins and really stepping into leadership roles. There's so many studies, particularly on women, that show that when you invest in women and girls, the return on that. So I think, and again, I'm heartened by today's award ceremony to see so many young people of color and so many women, stepping into leadership roles for sustainability. So thank you.
I'll also just jump in that we need good listeners, and I think we've heard that from other people. When you're working in a community and when you're working with stakeholders, I think leaders need to step back and listen. And they also have to take some risks, and try to bring people to a better place. But we definitely need to be listening more.
Kerem, please, go ahead. Oh, yes, Sarah.
I have many ideas, and I don't know how to pick one. I'll say, stay off Facebook. People can be mean sometimes, and that's my world. If you see a housing article posted on Facebook, read the comments, and that is what I actually experience in real life. And putting the human face to each other and being unflappable, being persistent, that this work needs to happen, and it's really hard and it's really challenging, and it's really challenging emotionally sometimes. And so I think what we need is to remember how to take care of ourselves as well as each other. If you are doing this kind of work and you are challenged by it and it is challenging to you emotionally, if you are burnt out, you are not going to be able to make the changes that you want to make. And so figuring out a way to take care of each other better, to treat our nonprofits differently, because being in a nonprofit, I was the executive director of a nonprofit for several years, that was really challenging, and that is a recipe for burnout. And so figuring out how to take care of each other, take care of our nonprofits, take care of the people who are doing this really important work. I'll leave it there.
I think for me is two things. One is, I think leadership is about being a servant leader. I think we have to be humble enough to be a servant of each other and of society at large. And I know that means being vulnerable. I know that means being a complete human being and being the same person that you are at work and you're at home, because our culture loves to bifurcate and compartmentalize. So be a complete human being, be a servant. The second thing is, which I think UNH is doing really well, is when I see classics and sciences on the same stage, I know that's the right thread. I do, because if we are to make sense of the world, and if we watch a Christopher Nolan movie like Interstellar and try to figure out what that actually means, inclusive of what the light bend is at the event horizon, or what Tom Moreno and Zach DeLoca talk about in Rage Against the Machine, or what Van Gogh tried to do when he painted and how nuts he was, or if you read a Haruki Murakami novel or try to make sense of Guns, Germs, and Steel, those things require complex, nuanced thinking that's inclusive of the complexity of human thought. So it's not one or the other, it's not and or, it's not a zero-sum game. So I have a complete rash and allergy when people try to compartmentalize humanity into specialities, because that's not the way complex problem thinking that is demanded of the 21st century is going to get addressed. So let us be humble and let us try not to speak in binary zeros and ones, but rather what is the spectrum of complexity. I think then you start sort of unraveling the solution to some of these really naughty problems, really naughty. That's where my soul is. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Oh.
So I think leaders to solve these problems need a number of things. I'm not going to repeat anything that I've already heard. I will add that one of the things that we're missing is the boldness and courage of real, true leadership. it can be quite daunting to talk about the kind of systemic change that we want. It requires an imagination and an ability to see beyond yourself and to vision a future that might be a little uncertain, and the courage to walk towards that, and that you will be okay to figure it out, especially if you truly do have the impact that you intend. That resolve is not in a lot of our leaders, unfortunately. The people we have selected or elected or supported, they are maintaining the status quo. And we need leaders who have the courage and the boldness to truly imagine a better world, because this ain't it. Mm-hmm. This is not it. This is not it. And the confidence to say that, and to say that we can truly make a better place, and that you want to.
Powerfully said. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe it takes a leader to be transformational leader. And many words were mentioned, being vulnerable, humble, putting human first, letting your team know that you're there for them. I also think that going to being bold and being a co-conspirator. I think leaders have to stop, you have a passion, there's a purpose of your organization, and to get to that for all people that are using your organization, your university, your school, your business, you have to fight for those people, even when they're not in the room. You have to, many people, I think about people who hold roles like mine in many institutions that are predominantly white. Many of these institutions, built on racism or acted on racism in the past, or on other people's lands. I think about that and to just call it out as a leader, call it out. And, I know leaders who've done it, who've lost their jobs. I know white men with a lot of accolades, a lot of degrees, a lot of who because they spoke up, they lost their job. And I understand people have families, people have bills to pay, mortgage. We were just talking about how expensive it is to live life now. So I understand that. And at the same time, there's people who hold identities up here that haven't been in these spaces, who speak up all the time no matter what. Even when they're already at the lowest point of being fired, not getting that promotion, not getting a higher paid, position or role or so on. So I think that's leaders have to take that in. Like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I might lose my job, but it's for, the people that we built this organization for, or that we're saying we're trying to center now. We talked about centering certain populations and identities, and that's how this work's going to sustain. I don't know if it was earlier, and we were meeting in Thompson Hall. The numbers of people of color are rising in New Hampshire. So if we really want to work on our organizations, we want to work at a university, we work on sustaining any of our businesses, we have to start censoring those identities. We should have already been censoring those identities, and now we have to really start doing it. So yeah, just for leaders.
It's awesome. I love the phrase, Andres, co-conspirators, for a kind of a better future. Kind of that idea of virtuous scheming. I'm going to take that with me. I like that. Amid the tough news that we hear every day, goodness knows this week has been a tough week from a news perspective. I think, these challenges of sustainability can often feel insurmountable. You really spoke to that, Sarah, as well. Just in closing, just a couple of words from each of you. What are the reasons that we should all have for hope and optimism? And what keeps you going in your work? And I'm gonna ask Sharon to start this time. We'll come down the row.
Oh, there's so much to say. I guess what gives me hope, there's a lot that gives me hope. When I see our staff in Kenya, and I'm the only non-Kenyan that works for the organization, when I see their passion and their dedication and their desire to see a change in our community. So I'll just give a little example. We do a lot of enrichment after school programs on literacy, on computing, on a whole host of things. And on one of our literacy programs, it's called Lit Clubs, our team went out and they were talking to the teacher about whether they'd work with the grade 5 or 6 students, and the teacher said, "Oh, you don't want to work with those grade 5 students, they're all dull." Now imagine a teacher calling their students dull. And our staff said, "Oh, those are the kids we want to work with." And so they work with the students for 2 years. And by the end of the 2 years, the teacher says, "What did you do?" And they're the brightest, they're the best class in the school. And what our staff did was listen to each kid. They encouraged each kid. They found each child's gifts and talent and let them shine. And I think, my hope is when I see those transformations in Kenya, and I've been going a long time, and I'm seeing changes in our community. I'm seeing kids running to the bus to read books, which they weren't doing 3 years ago. I'm seeing teachers who thought kids should only borrow revision books so they could practice for the exam because there's very high-stake testing in Kenya. They're reading storybooks, and the teachers are seeing a difference in the kids since they've been borrowing books. So I see those changes in the community, and I'm also thrilled when I see partnerships, and UNH is a partner with Kenya Connect. We actually have a team of social work and nursing, both students and faculty, going over in 3 weeks. And when you see the excitement of the students from UNH who are going to be traveling with me, and the dedication of the faculty who are going beyond the call of duty to really make this a learning experience, that gives me hope, because the more that we connect and do these kinds of programs together, it makes us more of a global citizen and makes us realize where we can play a role in this world, because we can all make a difference. I don't think it's too late to throw in the hat. At least today I don't. Maybe tomorrow I'll feel a little, but today I'm positive.
Sharon, thanks. Jason, in a few words, what gives you hope and optimism?
Fiona, you talked about, if you look at the news at the national level, how it's really disheartening. There's gridlock. There's a lack of cooperation on big, really important issues related to sustainability. What gives me hope, though, is looking at solutions that are happening at the local level. I did a red-eye flight, which I promised myself I wouldn't do, because I was at an event on Saturday in San Francisco, an organization called Homeless Prenatal. And it's an organization that's been around for about 20 years. And it's a hyper-local, only in San Francisco, and it's really working to bring pregnant women and their families off the street, and it's super successful. I mean, they have brought 3,500 women off the street over the last 20 years. And homelessness is an issue that's in the Bay Area, and it's actually around the country. And so seeing those kind of solutions, and then I was just reading in the Sustainability Institute's newsletter, the recent one, I want to make sure I get it right, the food forest, and how her name is Karen Spiller. She wrote the article and talking about how we're turning urban spaces into spaces for all to enjoy, to grow food that's not displacing people, and allowing people from within that community to enjoy the parks and outdoor space. So for me, what's happening hyper-local is really exciting, and I think what we need to do is recognize and see those successes, and then try to replicate them and scale them.
Yeah. Kerem.
You see, I am one of the generations of statistical improbabilities. I grew up in Pakistan of Turkish parents, met my wife here at UNH in 1992, and I'm sitting here. I mean, think of the myriad of the trillions of interdependent decisions, related or unrelated to me, that resulted in me being here. That gives me hope, because I could have had a completely alternate life, where I could be somewhere where there's absolutely no hope. So that gives me hope, because there are millions and millions and millions and millions of stories like mine in this country and everywhere else. So that to me is the genesis of it all, because I'm also a firm believer in the ancient Talmudic saying, which says, if you affect one life, you affect the universe. Let's think about that, because that's how I think. I'm in the business of creating infrastructure. Make no mistake about it. We are in a generational shift where 330 million Americans, probably in the next 10 years, will have access to high-speed broadband. Sidebar note, the Europeans did this 10 years ago. But think about it, 330 million Americans, because today, 160 million do not. We're very fortunate, we go on, we watch Netflix, we don't watch the Wheel of Life turning around, but 160 million Americans don't have that. Millions of immigrant businesses don't have access to the first key to intergenerational wealth, which is getting a loan at a reasonable interest rate from a bank that has enormous influence and networking capabilities. What gives me hope is that we have actually now an appreciation of what it means to be part of infrastructure. We're actually starting to believe that we can think in the long term of doing things for our kids and their kids. That's a tectonic shift. We are but a minuscule time scale in the human development. 5,000 years ago, we were priding ourselves in the fact that we built the pyramids, right, using very rudimentary engineering tools. And now we're saying, well, we're going to go and colonize another celestial planet. So in that time frame, mortality rates have gone down, education rates have gone up, the average GDP has gone up. We die less, live longer, get ticked off at each other a lot more, communicate way beyond it was humanly imaginable, and create policies that we are willing to fight on rather than taking orders from an authoritarian ding-dong that believes that, they are God's gift to humanity. We fight it now, right? We lean into it. We say, no, I'm going to vote. Or no, your policies are just wrong. And to your point, say, I'm brave enough, like Representative John Lewis said, be good trouble. Lean into it, put a shoulder into it. We're not afraid of that. We may pay a price for it. But 100 years ago, you'd be in jail for that or dead. So to me, that's progress. That gives me hope. Final part, Rami, is the graduates here. And just think about it. I don't know if you guys realize this, but you see the world in a very, very different lens, which is really cool. You want to destroy tropes. You want to destroy things that have bound us because we weren't smart enough to realize that ignorance, racism, and xenophobia are shackles to human thought. You're saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to quit. You can take your job and shove it, and guess what? I'm going to create another company or an entity. Or no, actually, I don't want to make $300,000 a year because it's the expense of humanity and the environment. God, that gives me hope. Of course it does. So let's keep on doing that. And we are miserable in northern New England. One more. Miserable, I know, I'm on a rant. Miserable in New England, northern New England, of being very pessimistic. It's very Puritan, very. We're pessimistic. We like to just keep amongst ourselves and stew. Well, you know what? The positive birth rate in the states of New Hampshire and in Maine are because of immigrants, either intrastate or from out of state. So over the next 100 years, we're going to be forced, thankfully, to reevaluate what it means to be a northern New Englander. That gives me hope.
Very similarly, it's young people that give me hope. So despite the state of the world, I decided to have a kid, and while right now he's shrieking somewhere in the mub, someday he could change the world. And truly, I have this feeling from younger people that they're mad. Young people are mad, and it's good anger. It's anger we can use. They seem so unwilling to accept the status quo, to accept or tolerate injustice, and they're willing to do something about it, and it gives me so much hope.
Thank you, Sarah. Andreanecia.
So the things that give me hope is an interesting word, right? I often, when I get asked this question, I kind of think of two different things, two different pieces of fiction, The Shawshank Redemption and Harry Potter. It's very weird because, when Andy Dufresne, everybody saw Shawshank, right? This is New England, y'all know. Hope is the great thing, right? The part and the fact that the hope kills you. And then also when I think of Harry Potter, I think about Sirius Black realizing that the Dementors couldn't steal the knowledge that he was innocent because it didn't make him happy, right? It was an absolute truth. It did not bring him pleasure because he knew he was innocent and he knew he was on a path that he needed to endure and survive in order to get to the next thing, to do what he wanted to do, which was save his godchild, right? So hope in that way is kind of painful, right? Because you absolutely know that it can become better. And it is not seductive, and it's not enjoyable, and it's not pleasurable, but it does move you forward. And so my hope is very much like that I am certain that the people in this room, the people in my community, the people on this planet can do what's necessary. And I will not yield that for any reason, no matter how painful it becomes, no matter how painful y'all make it. As we demonstrate every now and again, we backslide, right? That we're not ready to do what's necessary. I continue to hope that we can do better by each other and that we will do better by each other. And I'm going to hang on to that, and I'm going to resolve to continue to help push and contribute to that, like the folks up here on this stage.
Yeah, that deserves a round of applause for sure. All right, Andres, my friend, you have the closing words.
Oh, man, okay. What brings me hope in doing this work and continuing is, the children. I think about my daughter, who's 17-month-old, and just seeing her smile on her face, seeing her be happy and innocent, and, run around in my yard and still know that there's people that don't like her, like white supremacist groups, because of the color of her skin, and working in the schools and seeing kids her same age or a little bit older being suspended at higher rates, or detention or written up because they did something that all kids should be doing, and then seeing a policy change, saying actually we're not doing things this way anymore, and seeing that student not get suspended anymore. What also gives me hope is working with students from the LGBT plus community and students who 1 month wanted to end their lives because of all the transphobia and homophobic comments and hate they were getting, to the next year walking with their heads up high and leading groups of people to do the same, to walk with their heads up high for being gay or being trans or being queer. So that's what gives me hope. What gives me hope is being on a university campus and seeing a student of color move their tassel from left to right, right to left, whatever it is, we never know. But that's what gives me hope. That we are in these spaces and that organizations are pushing us, and are changing so that we can be successful. And at first, and we're still spaces, people from those identities have to deal with pain just to get that graduation, have to deal with pain just to get that high school degree, have to be told every day that they don't exist in their experience and that their lives don't exist just to get that degree. And now we're seeing that change. Now we're seeing things where people are coming to the schools and they're seeing their pictures, they're seeing their stories. And yes, teachers are getting fired for it, but it gives me hope that teachers are still risking, administrators are still doing this work, and we see it in the news every day. Another professor, another teacher, another getting let go because they fought for a student just to feel like they belong, and that you should, be here and you deserve this education as well. So that's what gives me hope. And it's sad to say that people getting fired gives me hope, but it just shows that there's more co-conspirators out there fighting for people and for the rights of all of us.
Beautifully said, Andres. Thank you. Thank you all for such a thought-provoking conversation. Thank you so much for the important, brave, courageous, inspiring work that you do every single day. We are so honored to count you as alums of this institution. We're so glad that you could come back to campus and share some of your wisdom and insight with us.